We're going to be making chili con carne today. Really delicious dish, great for those cold evenings, or if you want something to go on your jacket potato, really good the next day. Beautiful dish. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just run through the ingredients we're going to use. Now I'm going to use olive oil for frying up the onions, but you know, any oil will do. Now I'm going to use one largish onion. I've got a little tomato left there, a couple of tomatoes, so I'm going to chop those up. Along with the pepper, I've got a nice red pepper, so again, take the seeds out, chop it up. And also we've got a couple of garlics, so I'm going to crush those down. Now you also want to add some nice spices to it. Now what we're going to use is first of all a teaspoon, which is sort of one you put in your cups of tea, teaspoon of hot chili powder, paprika and ground cumin. Now what you can do, if you like your chili con carne really hot, obviously you can add a little bit more chili powder, or if you like it a little bit milder, just put half a teaspoon in instead. Again, with the paprika, gives a sort of smoky flavour. If you like that, you can always add a little bit more. I mean, you know, try it and you can always adjust it next time round. Now the other ingredients we've got here, we've got some lean beef steak mince. Now any beef mince will do, but just try and make sure it's lean. There's about 500 grams, which is just over a pound of that. Now we're going to fry that up, try and get it a little bit browned off. Add a little bit of red wine, but you don't have, you haven't got to add the red wine if you haven't got that or you don't like it. Herbs wise, or herbs, however you like to pronounce it, we're going to use 1 teaspoon of oregano. I've got some fresh thyme, but again, if you haven't got that, you can use dried thyme. Just use 1 teaspoon of that as well. Also, a couple of little bay leaves, stick of cinnamon, and I've also got a can of chopped tomatoes. We've got some beef stock, and also some red kidney beans. Now with the red kidney beans, take them out the can, put them in a sieve and sort of wash them off really, and then we just add those a little bit at the end. And then finally, we've got a little bit of plain dark chocolate there, so we're just going to add that in just at the end. So just before we start the cooking, I'm just going to prepare the vegetables, chop them down, and then we're going to start frying them up in a little bit of that olive oil. So we're going to go on with the cooking then. Now I'm actually going to use this cast iron pot, but if you haven't got one of those, obviously just use a frying pan. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil in there. You don't really need too much. So we'll just let the oil heat up a little bit. Now I'm doing this on a sort of medium, about a medium to medium low heat. So we don't want to sort of brown up, the onions. We just really want to kind of soften them up a little bit. So make sure your heat's not too high, and really just do this for probably 5 or so minutes really until they're softer, a bit squidgy almost, and just give them a stir just to make sure they're all cooking nicely. So we've been cooking the onions probably for about 5 or so minutes, just slightly softening up, and then what we're going to do is pop in those 2 cloves of garlic. We don't want to sort of get them too brown or anything, so turn the heat down if you find that it's, too high. Now I'm also going to pop into there, I've got those red pepper chopped up, also the tomatoes there, fresh tomatoes. I'm just going to put a little bit of salt and give that all a stir around. And then in the middle there, I'm just going to add in those spices. So just to show you, we've got the spices there. We've got a teaspoon of each of those, which is obviously hot chili powder, paprika and ground cumin. Obviously do those to taste. If you want it a bit sort of, not as hot, obviously add a little bit less of the chili powder, hot chili powder. So we're just going to blend that up and cook that for about 5 minutes. Now whilst I've got this cooking for sort of 5 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a separate frying pan, because I want to brown off the meat, and I find the frying pans are really good for doing that. So I'm just going to put that aside and bring the frying pan into view. So I'm just going to pop a lid on that and move that aside. I'm just going to use this frying pan because really I do want to brown off the meat. So just put a little bit of oil in there, wait for that heat up. Do it on a sort of medium heat, I'd say, and put the actual beef mince in a bit at a time. So I've got a nice hot pan. I've put a little bit of olive oil in there, again, just to brown off this meat. Now what I do is give it a swoosh around first of all, make sure there's oil everywhere, and I'm just going to add some of that beef steak in. Try and get it brown all over. So don't put too much in there, just enough to sort of kind of brown it off and mix it up, and then put a little bit more in. You carry on doing that until you've got all the mince in there and it's all kind of browned off a little bit. And I'm just going to add a little bit of salt and pepper seasoning into here. And again, I've got some ground black pepper, so I'll pop that in. And again, give that a stir around. Break it up a little bit, just until you get a colour on it really. It's just starting to brown off a little bit, getting a bit of colour, look at that, lovely, like that. So what we're going to do is transfer all this meat that we've seasoned, and we're going to put it back in that cast iron pot, the main sort of pot we started cooking with. Now try and leave as much of the liquid as you can behind. Now, as a quick little tip, if you want to just lean that up and pull all this away, and all that oil and that sort of collects at the bottom, we can use the tissue just to take that all out. So just leave that for a minute to drain down there, and then just put a tissue in there and take it all out. So I'm just going to put a tissue there and just leave that to soak up. So we've got a nice dry meat mixture. So we're back to the big cast iron pot. Smelled good actually, all these flavours in here. Now I'm just going to pour in all of that beef mince, lean beef mince. Just get all those bits out there. Now I've just kind of got it there, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of red wine, but you don't have to, you can leave that out. I think it just kind of adds a little bit to the flavour, but as I say, you know, don't worry if you haven't got that or you don't want to add that. Keep the heat fairly high, just to burn off a little bit of that alcohol and mix it around with the meat. And just give that all a stir up. Try and get all those flavours together really. Mix it all up now. Looking nice and colourful, smells really good. Let's hope it tastes good. Now I'm going to add the herbs. We've got 1 teaspoon of oregano, and I've got some fresh thyme. But otherwise 1 teaspoon of dried oregano and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. Just mix it up. And I'm just going to make a little place in the middle there, and we're going to put in some tomato puree. Good splodge of that, kind of richens it all up. Just let that cook for a minute or so, and then we'll mix it up with all the meat and everything. Start folding that in. Turn the heat down if it's getting a bit much. Great. I'm just going to put in a can of tomatoes, can of chopped tomatoes. Also, I'm going to add in some beef stock, oxo cubes, bouillon, whatever you want, you know. Give that a mix up, try and get all those flavours everywhere. Also I've got a couple of bay leaves, just going to put those in, and again 1 cinnamon stick. So what you can do with the mixture, if you find it's a little bit dry or whatever, because you know I'm going to cook this for quite a while, just add a little bit of extra water in there. I'm just going to add a little bit of hot water out the kettle. I mean, keep an eye on it. Give it a stir, occasional stir. I'm going to put a lid on mine, and we're going to cook it for, I'd say, a good half an hour. You can cook it for longer obviously, but keep an eye and make sure it's not sticking to the pan and it's got enough water, and just add a bit more if you need to. Again, just give that a stir. Oh, it smells great. Beautiful. Just pop a lid on there. Do it on a fairly low sort of simmer heat, about half an hour. Now I've been simmering mine for a good half an hour, maybe slightly longer. Look at that, looks really nice. The sauce is nice and thick. Now what we're going to add to that is the red kidney beans. So I'm just going to pour those in and probably cook that, mix it up, cook it for another 10 minutes. Just give that a good stir. I'm going to pop the lid back on there and just carry on simmering for another 10 minutes. Now I'm just going to take the lid off there. We've actually been cooking it in this pot for about 40 minutes. Looks absolutely lovely, doesn't it? Look at that, beautiful. The smells when you take that lid off, absolutely scrumptious. Now I'm just going to try that to see how it tastes. because it's a good time to try it before you serve it up. Try a little bit of that. Tastes really nice. You've got some lovely flavours in there. Now normally at this sort of stage I'll be sort of checking to see if we need a little bit of salt or a little bit of sugar or whatever, because I put the can of tomatoes in. Now if you like a little bit of sweetness, you can add just like a teaspoon of sugar. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of chocolate on mine. So I've got plain dark chocolate. I mean, this one's not your sort of milky chocolate, it's like 85% cocoa, just to add a little bit of sweetness. It's not very sweet. We don't want to add too much chocolate that you actually taste the chocolate. It's just to kind of, you know, make it a little bit sweeter, but gives a nice flavour and they can't always identify it. And what you want to do is just give that a stir up so they don't see the chocolate in there, but oh, they're going to love it. They're going to love it. It's going to add such a nice flavour. Look at that, it's all disappeared and melted. So we can now serve that up. So I've taken that off the heat. Just before you serve it up, just give it a quick stir around. Now you might want to take like the cinnamon stick out of there, and if you can find the bay leaves, take those out. There's one there and another one there. So I'll whip those out and we'll serve it up with a little bit of rice. Now I'm just going to serve that up with a little bit of rice I've made. So let's just pop a little bit out on there. So I've got my rice there and I'm just going to serve up some of that chili con carne. Look at that. Beautiful. So let's just try that. Now if you wanted to add anything to this, you could add some soured cream and chives. Put a little bit of, you know, on top of there or on the side of the plate as you wish. But I'm going to try a bit of that. Get some of that red kidney beans and the meat and everything. Let me try that. Looks beautiful. Let me try it. It's lovely. Absolutely lush. I love the flavour. You got those little bit of the sort of chili coming through, not too overpowering, because I think the beans sort of absorb some of that, and the little bit of sweetness, not very much we put in with that chocolate. Beautiful dish, really simple, doesn't cost that much, and if you've got any left the next day, make yourself a jacket potato, put a bit of that on top, little bit of cheese, beautiful. Thanks for watching, enjoy.